Before we start this show, just a word from our sponsor, 20 by 20 Apparel. Founded in 2015, 20 by 20 Apparel brings original tributes to pro wrestling's classic arenas, moments, and events. They look to spotlight the bloopers, bleeps, and body slams along with the biggest, smallest, strangest, and strongest that pro wrestling has had to offer. Along with their awesome line of pro wrestling apparel, they do offer many services. In the world of wrestling, there are hundreds of shirts, promotions, flyers, social media accounts, and ads. Don't get lost in the sea of parody shirts and display fonts. They can provide professional graphic design services at a reasonable price. 20 by 20 also hand screen prints all the tees in-house. If you would like to discuss possible run of tees, posters, koozies, foam fingers, or whatever, drop them a line. Go to 20 by 20 Apparel. That's the number 20x, the number 20 apparel.com. Now, let's get to the show.
Fresh is the word.
I'm Jim Duggan, got long wood for plenty hoes. I keep it fresher than fresh, but you already know. You suckers bum me, I'm money, I got a ton of flows. My weed loud like a motherfucking thunder roll. Your shit quiet like you ballin' on a budget though. We see your kicks and we laugh and yellin' what are those? You see me shining like a suit on puffy. You know my grind and shit is too strong, buddy. That's why the dude call money. I be stuntin' like it's nothing at all, cause it's nothing to me. It's probably something to y'all. Trying to smoke like me, then come and fuck with your dog. Got a closet full of kicks, you can't cop it them all. And I'm fresher than the freshest, you can tell it's in my essence. Bitch, you see the way I'm rapping, yes I do this shit to death. I tell I'm running out of breath, I tell somebody cut a check. But either way you know it's fresh, and either way you know it's fresh. Fresh, we fresh. Fresh, 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 goddammit, we fresh. Fresh, fresh, goddammit, we so damn fresh.
Welcome to the Fresh is the Word podcast. I'm your host, Kelly K. Fresh Frazier. And on Fresh is the Word, we like to deliver wisdom through great stories from the minds of bright creatives of pop culture. Through those stories, we like to dissect the journey of our guests and present actionable lessons and advice for our listeners, no matter what career or avenue of artistry they pursue. And before we get into this episode, I want to give a shout out to Knox Money, Bang Belushi, and Foul Mouth for the theme music for Fresh is the Word. And if you would like to support the podcast, you can always go to freshithepodcast.com and just share any of the links for any of the episodes on any of your social media platforms. And also, you can subscribe to Fresh is the Word pretty much anywhere that podcasts are streamed. And that includes Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, pretty much everywhere. And please rate and review, especially on Apple Podcasts. It will definitely help out the show. If you want to contact me, you can always reach me by email at djkfresh@gmail.com. Or you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at KFresh is the word, and on Facebook at facebook.com/KFresh. And you can also follow Fresh is the Word on Twitter at Fresh is the Word, and that's is with an IZ, Instagram at Fresh is the Word Podcast, and Facebook at facebook.com/Fresh is the Podcast. And this is episode 144. Our guest this episode is Ephie Aardema, who is currently playing the role of Dawn on the touring production of Waitress the Musical. This Tony Award-nominated musical is brought to you by a groundbreaking all-female creative team featuring original music and lyrics by six-time Grammy-nominated Sara Bareilles, a book by acclaimed screenwriter Jessie Nelson, and the direction by Tony Award winner Diane Paulus. The music is based on the 2007 film of the same name, written by Adrienne Shelly. Along with her role in Waitress, Aardema recently originated the role of Ty in Clueless The Musical. During our conversation, we talked about how she went straight from doing Clueless to Waitress, learning her new roles, her experiences thus far with Waitress, her upbringing, how her side gigs are in service of her time doing musicals, how she tries to enjoy all the cities that the musicals take her to, and her love of plants. Now let's get into the interview with Ephie Aardema after a quick word from our sponsor.
Hey guys, we're Chuck and Brad. We're two comedians who do the Chuck and Brad podcast, a pop culture podcast based out of Rhode Island.
We just wanted to let you know that we're going on a short comedy tour called Chuck and Brad Reimagine the Avengers.
It's our own comedic retelling of the original Avengers movie, and we're touring the shows the same weekend that Avengers Endgame comes out. So come get a refresher and a new spin on the original Avengers movie before you go see Endgame.
Thursday, April 25th, we'll be in Hartford, Connecticut at the CT Comedy Theater with BJ Quagan, Andrew Morgan, and Stosh Makita.
Saturday, April 27th, we'll be in New York City at the Pit Loft with Impractical Jokers tour opener Jiggy, Impractical Jokers writer Casey Jost, and UCB veteran Lisa Kleinman.
Sunday, April 28th, we'll be at Laugh Boston with John Tilson, Logan O'Brien, Tyler Swain, and Dan Hall. All event info and tickets at chuckandbradpodcast.com.
Every night we'll have the comics open up the show and we'll close with our live retelling of the Avengers.
And for a tiny bit of background, we've done the podcast for 10 years. We've had on great guests like Jeff Tremaine, the director of the Jackass movies, the bands Bowling for Soup, Less Than Jake, Real Big Fish, Big D and the Kids Table, and many, many more.
And if you're a big podcast listener, you might know me from Tell 'em Steve Dave. I work on film projects for the podcast Tell 'em Steve Dave, which is made up of Walton Bryant from AMC's Comic Book Men and Quinn from True TV's Impractical Jokers. I consistently do the film work for the Tell 'em Steve Dave Patreon. So come on out, support this very weird live comedy show, and hopefully more and more podcasts will start doing their own live alternative shows.
Once again, that's Chuck and Brad Reimagine the Avengers, New York City, Hartford, and Boston. See you at the end of the month. chuckandbradpodcast.com.
Okay, you're part of this, the touring company of Waitress, and you were also a part of Clueless recently, the Clueless the Musical. How was your experience with both these musicals recently?
Well, my experience with Clueless was really different than my experience with Waitress. Clueless was a brand new musical, and I was part of the original cast, so that was a whole process of creating and finding out what it was together, and it was a really fast-paced process. We had about 6 weeks of rehearsal, which is not a lot of time for a brand new show.
Right.
It was really fun. The company was young and energetic and hilarious, and we had a run that was sold out before we even started, and so the audiences were packed and energized, and the process was delightful. And I found out about a week after we closed that I was coming out to do Waitress. So my process with Waitress was different than anything I've ever done, because I've never been a replacement before, and I've never been on tour. So it was like really different from anything I've ever done. It was 2 weeks of rehearsal. I only had 3 days notice before I was out here. So I had 3 days to like pack up my life.
Oh.
And I'm not going to be back till the middle of August at the earliest. So it was like 3 days to pack up my life for like half a year. And
Wow.
like flew to Houston, Texas, where I've ever been, and started rehearsals while the show was happening, and basically just like watched the show every night, and then would have rehearsal for a few hours during the day for 2 weeks, and then just like had to do it and like go in and do the show. But coming into a cast that had already been doing it, some of them had already been doing it for 2 years or even more than that for a few of them who'd been a part of multiple companies at Waitress. So yeah, that was kind of like the differences between the two.
Wow, you're just kind of thrown in the deep end.
Yeah, I mean, they had my back, and like I was definitely prepared, so everything was fine. But definitely two different sort of processes. One, like coming in and learning something and being part of something that already exists, versus like creating it from the ground.
Where did you sort of pick up where you had to, what is it about yourself where you had to like learn how to be prepared really quickly? Is that something that you always had in life? Where did you pick that up?
Oh, I think like it just comes out of necessity. Being an actor, like at the very beginning of my theater career, I did a lot of summer stock where you are learning these shows in just a few weeks. And it's a little bit less pressure because they're like regional theaters and you're only doing the show for a few weeks. So it makes sense that you would only rehearse for a few weeks, but you do have to learn quickly. And a lot of that it just comes from, you get the skills you need because you want to do it so badly. So you just show up, they tell you this is the amount of time you have to learn it. And you end up practicing things in your living room and singing your music in your head like all the time to make sure that you know what you're doing.
Is there a bit of an adrenaline rush with all of that? You know, how do you sort of calm your nerves? I know you can't get rid of your nerves, but how do you sort of contain all that?
How do I, let's see. There's definitely an adrenaline rush. I try to use the adrenaline if I can. A lot of characters that I have played, not all of them, but several of them have been, you know, either have been like eccentric. And so there is a bit of that nervousness that you can use and is actually really helpful with that. In particular with my character Dawn in Waitress, she has OCD and it really is like a bit of a nervous Nelly. And so being nervous was like actually quite useful. And sometimes when I'm feeling really confident, when I'm feeling calm and cool and collected, I have to pull on remembering what it feels like to be nervous because like it is important to her journey that's there for you. So for this, it was like useful to be nervous as long as I actually knew what I was doing, because you have to have both. Like you have to have like one part of your brain and your body that like really knows what it's doing so that you don't get hurt, you don't hurt other people, you remember what you're supposed to say, like things like that. But then you have to have the other side of you, which is like embodying the character and embracing, you know, the nervous energy. With Clueless, she was an oddball, but she was also like a stoner, like
right.
really, really laid back. So so it didn't help as much to be nervous with that, but it was also, I had a little bit longer process with that character. So yeah, I also had, with Clueless, my character didn't come in for the first 40 minutes of the show. So I would sit backstage and like, I would really calm down because everybody else was already out there and doing it. And I had all this time to like, just chill out before I had to do anything.
When you're going from one musical to the next, like going from Clueless to Waitress, you know, how do you what's the mental mind state in regards to locking into that character when you're going to a new character?
There's a lot of things that you can do. I definitely try to start with knowing what my objective is in each of the scenes, and that basically like means like knowing what does my character want. And looking at the circumstances around that and what are my obstacles to getting that. That's one thing that I like to start with. And then there's like all of the just like qualities to that character tend to come from that. Like a lot of those will just show up out of that. But there are certain things that you have to address, like how does my character speak? Comes from like where are they from, you know, do they have any health issues, like are they decongested, are they, you know, like stuff like that. And a lot of figuring out how to jump from one character to another has to do with just asking questions like that. Right. So I with Waitress, it was awesome because the show has existed already and there's been multiple companies, so I don't feel like I'm copying anyone because there's so many different Dawns out there and they are all different. But at the same time, a lot of those questions are easily answered because I can watch archival videos of other productions and be like, what's the answer to this question? Well, it's like, it's right there. Like, I don't have to keep reading the script over and over to figure it out. and there's also like a company full of people who've been doing the show who can answer a lot of those things for me. So there's that. I'm trying to think. I mean, I got my hair cut as soon as I got out to tour, which made me feel really different because my hair was really long.
Right.
Now it's pretty short, and and that definitely helped.
On Waitress, when you're figuring out this character, when you're coming on board, how important is it to, ask those questions, and who are the people, what's the importance of this collaborative effort that's going on?
Oh, okay. So, well, with replacing, a lot of that fell to me. Like, it didn't feel like everyone was trying to help me figure out the character per se, but everybody was helping me be ready to do the show. And there was not a lot of focus on character development. It was more a focus on helping me learn my blocking, my music, choreography, stuff like that, because when you only have 2 weeks, it's really like what you have to focus on. But if I had any questions about the character, everyone was more than happy to answer them. But yeah, it's interesting because like I've been out here for a month doing this, and I still feel like every day my connection with the character deepens and I have a greater understanding for who she is. And a lot of that's personal. Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of Dawn, you did touch on it before, but what's so special about this character?
A lot of things. I think that she just has a heart of gold, and she loves Jenna so much, and Becky, the other two waitresses, and she really wants to find love, and I think that she's like felt a great blockage to that, just in her inexperience. And I imagine that she lived with her mother to like a point, to an age where it like wasn't cool, and now like finally has her own studio apartment, and she's been taking baby steps. And I think a lot of people come to the show really identify with her as someone who is afraid to put themselves out there, but truly wants to be loved. She's really identifiable. Like, there are so many people who come to the show who are like, I feel like I'm Dawn.
Right. With Waitress, so many, of the cast and the creative are women. Sara Bareilles, who did the music for it. How do you feel being a part of this, Hallmark musical that a lot of creative from women?
I feel good about the fact that there are a lot of women working on it, especially since it is a story about women, about 3 women. But I also, like, a lot of times just kind of forget because it just feels like working on any other show. They happen to be women, and that's such a great, like, statistic for the world. But it's been really interesting, like, doing interviews and stuff for TV, and how often someone will ask me, like, is this a show that can be enjoyed by everyone? And then they'll look at me and they'll kind of qualify that and say, like, are men going to enjoy it too? And it always, like, I've never answered that question the way that I really wanted to, because I'm always just trying to, like, put on a good face, and I don't want anyone to feel like offended by what I want to say, which is like, would you ask me that if the 3 leads were men?
Right.
Like, why is there an assumption that men might not enjoy it when, like, we don't feel that way the opposite way? Like, it's just it's indicative of like an imbalance in our society that we have to answer that question, or else men won't come.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they're basically saying, like, so should men come to the show? And we're like, well, we don't say, like, should women come to the show if there's all men in the leads. We just assume that they can see themselves in many characters, and I think that's so interesting. But I do feel I'm happy about the fact that it's all female team, and I think that is like a cool marker, like, historically, for the Broadway community. yeah.
You know, what is it about Waitress as a musical that makes it special and would make it something that anybody could watch, come see, whether, you know, they're young, old, or, you know, man or woman or whatever?
I think that it is an amazing story about finding yourself in, like, amongst trauma and, like, seeing the next generation and knowing, like, you're about to, what are you going to pass on to the next generation? Are you going to keep passing on a trauma that you've already encountered? Are you going to let that continue, or are you going to say, no, I'm going to change my life so that the next generation's life will be changed? Because that's, like, ultimately what Jenna's story is about. And the two waitresses have their own version of that they've been living a reality that is not good for them. And it is about changing and, like, the pain of changing. And I think that the birth aspect of it, like her having this baby, is such a good metaphor for how people, when you really need to change your life, it's like giving birth. Like, it's painful, but, like, you have to do it. And at a certain point, hopefully you feel forced. Like, there's no stopping it. It's just going to happen, and kind of embracing that and going with that, so to make the next generation better.
How much of you personally, you know, do you put into the character of Dawn? It's
funny. I don't think I'm a particularly nervous person, though I do let that come out with Dawn. I definitely think that there's a certain amount of myself in every character that I can't do anything about, because it's my body and it's my mouth and it's coming out of me. So, like, no matter what I do, there is going to be some of me in every character. With Dawn, I relate to, I think she has, like, a positivity, my Dawn, and I don't think that that's, like, I don't think every Dawn is necessarily going to, like, capitalize on that, because you really don't have to, like, in the text. But I think that there is, like, it's like a naivete. It comes across that way, but in my heart, I just feel like it's this, she has a little bit of, like, a sunshine quality inside. And I relate to that, and I relate to her vulnerability. I think that there is, like, a little young duckling sort of quality to her that she can't really help. And I feel like that a lot. I feel very, like, open in general.
You know, kind of, you know, going back some, you know, what kind of a kid were you? When did you, you know, first get the inkling to, like, be a performer?
I was 8 when I started. I started dancing when I was 8. I didn't want to go to after school program, and there was a dance studio next to our school. And so my mom was a single parent. So I just asked, and she was working. She would, like, work late. So I just asked if I could go to dance class instead of doing stuff at my school, and started dancing that way. And then by the time I was 10, I was doing community theater and, like, knew that I wanted to act. And by the time I was graduating high school, I knew it's what I wanted to study. It never really went away. You know, I'm trying to think, like, what kind of a kid I was. I was pretty shy. And then I think around high school, I became more extroverted. Like, the happier I got, the more extroverted I became. Yeah.
When was the first time that you sort of realized that maybe being a part of musicals could be something that you could do for a while, if not for a living?
I mean, I think I went to Circle in the Square, which is a theater conservatory, and I definitely went there with the intention of being an actor for a living. And I just started auditioning after that and was acting, and whenever I was in a show, I was using that money to support myself, and whenever I wasn't in a show, I was babysitting to pay my bills while I was auditioning. But I've mainly been acting to support myself, like ever since I got out of college. I was pretty young when I went to school. I was 15 when I graduated high school. So by the time I got out of this 2-year conservatory, I was only 18 years old and like out in the regular world and living on my own. And so it's been a journey. I have a side gig now that's not babysitting that I do on my computer, and that pays the bills when I'm not in a show. But I've been really lucky. I've been working, and I don't give up my side gig because it kind of reminds me to separate that feeling of needing to pay the bills from the passion that I have for the art that I make, and it does give me a sense of security.
Right. Yeah. Not everybody does that.
Yeah.
And I was listening to this one podcast, and they're taking a more practical view. Like whenever anybody who does anything artistic, have those jobs, those side gigs or day jobs in service to whatever artistry that you're doing.
I mean, that is why I keep it. It's also like a side gig that I like to do. It's fun, and I'm interested in it. But I've kept it even though I've been on tour, even though I was doing Clueless. I was in a show before Clueless. Like, I still kept my other job, because I can, and because there is something mentally about knowing that if your show closes, you're going to be okay.
Right.
There is something to that frees you up to be able to just create art and have it be detached from paying the bills. That makes your art better, I think.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. And I think that's where they were coming from when having a job be in service of your art, is that, for many, some people might need the fear to be creative, but then there's some of us that like to have that, that thing back there, that foundation, and it gives, frees up our mind to do our art better.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how I feel. That's how it makes me feel. I'm almost superstitious about it. I almost feel like I can't quit my side job, because then like it could alter like the energy that's out there that's been so positive for me for my work in theater. It almost feels superstitious.
Right. If it feels right, then, why change things?
Yeah, like I don't want to change the balance of what I'm putting out there in the world, because it feels right now.
Outside of all that, what kind of things do you do in your spare time? What do you do to sort of decompress?
I write songs. I play ukulele and I play guitar. Now that I'm on tour, I try to go see something, like one or two things in every city that we go to, because I don't want to miss the experience of being on tour. I don't want to miss these places.
Right.
Because to me, like that's the reason to go on tour. Beyond other things is like,
right,
to see the places you go to. It would be really easy not to see these cities. It would be really easy to just like because you're exhausted. It's like a really exhausting life. You're constantly traveling. You're constantly packing and unpacking your bags and carrying your suitcases. We have rehearsals during the week because creative members will come out from the company and come see the show, and we'll have notes and we work, and it really never stops. The work never stops. So it's completely exhausting, and it would be super easy to just stay in your hotel room any chance that you got and just sleep and watch TV. And so, yeah, I try to make a point of saying in each city, trying to see one or two things. I haven't really done that in Jacksonville, which is where we are now, but that's because I also grew up in Florida, so I'm less concerned.
Yeah,
because I know this area. So,
see, that's a topic that's actually come up recently on other people that I've interviewed, whether they're a pro wrestler or a comic book artist who does the convention circuit. We've talked about, when you're traveling, there's a lot of people that they know who will go to these different places but never actually see the cities that they're in. They just say they see the venue that they're at in the airport. How important is it for you to take that time out to see the city that you're in? What does that do to your just creative process or just to your own mental health?
It definitely makes it feel like a more fulfilling moment in my life. And this is my first tour, and so I just I lowered my hours for my side gig, so I'm making less money from that, and I lowered what I needed to do for that for the express purpose of seeing the cities that I'm in. And my manager for that was so supportive and was like, yes, you should take this opportunity, because it's an opportunity, and I don't want to let it pass me by. And you don't really get to know the city in 1 week, but if you can see one or two things, you at least then have this portrait of America in your head, and one that you might otherwise never really get. It's interesting. And I also try to have a conversation with a local while you're in each city. It can be really easy to avoid people too, and I'm trying not to do that.
Right. And I also see that you are quote unquote a lover of plants.
Yeah.
What's that about?
Yeah, I was actually just Googling yesterday. I was trying to figure out if there were any plants that travel well, and there just aren't. Plants were not really meant to be taken through the airport and stuff, which is such a bummer. But I have plants all over my apartment. I love plants, especially my favorite is pothos plants. I have them all over my apartment. And I really thought about taking one with me and thought, oh, that's a bad idea. But I miss them, miss the plants, because they're alive and you can watch them change and grow, but you have to be patient, and there's just a simplicity to plants, and they clean the air around you. I think houseplants are the best.
Perhaps while you're on tour, you can search to see if any specific cities that you're in have anything unique that you can see.
Yeah, I love seeing outdoor, going to botanical gardens, stuff like that too. But I think when I wrote that, and when I was writing my bio, I wrote that I loved plants because I was thinking about my house plants.
Right.
And also because one of our castmates told me who I knew from before, told me when I was coming out here, she was if you ever mention things that you like, then super fans of the show tend to send you that kind of stuff. And so when I was writing my bio, I had just gotten that text from her. And so I was well, I love tea, I love books. I was thinking about what do I like, so I can put that out there in the universe.
Have you gotten anything from anybody?
Yeah, I've gotten some artwork, but nothing specific to the things that I like yet. No, it hasn't manifested.
Nice. I always like to ask this question in the interviews. What is something, what's a nugget of knowledge from your life or career that anybody listening to this, doesn't matter what their avenue of artistry is, they could project into their own life?
Okay, cool. Yeah, nugget of knowledge. The first thing that I thought of is something that a friend of mine who played Dawn on Broadway said to me once. Her name's Caitlin Houlihan, and she said, "Work your quirks," was her piece of advice in general to anyone. Right. And I don't know why, but that just popped in my head. Work your quirks. It's kind of true. In its hilarious simplicity as a statement, it actually can be kind of deep. And I think what she really means by that is there are things about yourself that are special and unique to you, and you might as well draw on those and work them like work your quirks, work the things that are special about you, because you know, like everyone knows those little things about yourself. Yeah.
What do you think your quirks are?
My quirks?
Yes.
I have a really interesting relationship with my dad. That has made me a better actor. So that's definitely one of those things. It's like too complicated to go into detail about.
Right.
And also like maybe too personal, but you know what I mean? It's
Yes.
like one of those relationships that's very strange. And then I'm trying to think what else. I think that I tend to wear my heart on my sleeve and in like a noticeable way. So I try to embrace that and not be upset about it, you know, like not like shy away from it, but rather know that about myself and like bring that to all the characters that I play and to the songs that I write.
And before we get out of here, why should anybody come to see a Waitress?
Oh, I think everyone should come. It's super funny. It's a really dark, you know, plot when you just talk about what happens in it, but it's in like people come and they cry, but like people laugh and they always say, "Oh, I didn't know it was going to be so funny." After. So it's a really nice thing to go to bring your family, bring your friends when you want to go have a heartfelt experience, but also like just laugh.
Great. Where can people go online and get more information about you and more information about Waitress?
Oh, I have Twitter and I have Instagram. It's just my name. Both of them are, my handle is at Ephie Aardema, EPHIEAARDEMA. That's probably where you'll get the most information about me. As far as Waitress goes, I think they have a website. I'm assuming it's Waitress Musical something, but
It's waitressthemusical.com.
I don't actually know the URL.
It's waitressthemusical.com.
I'm 100% sure if you Google it, it comes right up.
Right.
And they also have social media as well.
So that was my interview with Ephie Aardema, who plays Dawn in the touring production of Waitress the Musical. Links to get more information about where Waitress the Musical will be going on tour are in the show notes for this episode on freshtothepodcast.com. Upcoming cities include Indianapolis, Grand Rapids, here in Detroit, Michigan, where I will be in attendance on press night, Worcester, Mass., and much more. Another great interview in the books. Thank you for listening. Goodbye and good night.
Fresh is the word.